Podcast may have affiliated or sponsored segments. Any affiliated links or sponsored segments will be disclosed to comply with FTC guidelines and to be transparent with our listeners. Welcome to the Craft Cove, a place where we discuss current crafts, future projects, and learn more about various crafting forms we enjoy the most. I'm your host, SleepingLunaDesigns, but you can call me Liz. It's great to have you here, friend. Let's catch up on some crafty goodness. This time we're going to discuss some works in progress on both the crochet and cross stitch side. Talk a little bit about what we've hauled since our very first episode. And we have a couple of finishes along with our favorite shop of the month. Let's get started. August has proven to be very productive. I took a step back from Twitch for a couple of days. I needed to take a break mentally. And for some reason, when I did that, then I became productive. Not sure how that really worked out, but we got a few things done. I made about 6 grime guards, which was really good considering that normally I don't make any in a month. Making 6 in a month is kind of a great accomplishment for me. Thrilled about that, getting those shipped out all over, really. They went all over the place. And then outside of that, we have 2 finishes. We have the Triangles of the Heart. That was our Rainbow Pride piece that was way overdue, but finally was finished, shipped out to its new owner. The way that I finished that piece, the floss was actually wrapped around the hoop. So I actually had a 6-inch hoop, and the whole entire hoop was covered in floss. It was shade 310, which is black. And this was white Ada 14 count, and then all of the different colors, of course, stitched on top of it. Now for the back, what I did was I cinched it. I cinched it all together and did my best to start. But then to cover the messiness of the cinching, I cut out a circle of glittered felt fabric. And then I whip stitched that onto the back of the actual piece, just whip stitching that onto the Ada to secure it further. And this gives a really nice finishing touch. So then that way, A, there are no glue lines. B, you can use a floss that can easily blend into your felt and your fabric, so it's not seen. And C, you don't have to see any of the actual interior of the stitching. So none of your stitching really ever gets exposed. If you stitch and you're worried about the back showing up, like being shown off in any way, shape, or form, in a hoop, I highly recommend always finishing with a piece of felt. It might take a few extra minutes, but it's worth it to hide any mistakes that you're afraid to show off. The other piece that we finished, finally, is the Universal Monster Stitch Along from Witchy Stitcher. So glad this is finally done. This has been in the books for about a year for me. This was a sal for 2019, and it took me this long to finish it. I am a little embarrassed about how long it took me, but it's finally done. I have no plans for framing this piece at the moment. I'm not 100% sure how I want to go about it, simply because my smart little butt decided to take on a new stitching project. We will talk about that in the works in progress or the haul section, one of the two. The last thing that I finished in August was a granny fillet square from Maria's Blue Crayon, and it's a free pattern. I'll link to it in the episode description. Now, this granny fillet square was one of many Christmas presents that I have to accomplish this year. And this was done using the Lionheart brand cupcake in the shade Sandcastle. It is a multicolored yarn that does all of its own transitions. It's really stunning. I loved it. The pattern itself called for 3 balls of this particular yarn, so around 1,600 yards. I ended up only using 2 and got a pretty decent width. It's about 37, 38 inches in width. And I'm thrilled with how it turned out for that aspect of things. It could be bigger, just depends on the mood you're in. So if I feel like going back and adding more, I'll go back and I'll add more. However, I'm already planning on starting my second of the Granny Fillet Square blankets for Christmas time. And that is in a much different shade. I forget the exact name, but it's in a more coral and beachy toned sort of color palette. Really excited to get that one started. In the works in progress pile, of course, we have the Lunar Princess Stitch Along. Now, by the time you're hearing this, we'll just about be approaching the release for Chapter 8, which will complete the exterior circle of this piece. And quite honestly, I'm really excited to see the full exterior border fully finished and fully out there for the world. Lots of great detailing coming up, some backstitching, couple French knots or beads if you choose to switch those out, and just a few more pops of color along the way. Now, in the Lunar Princess Stitch Along, just a fun little tip, considering that I get the opportunity to tell you all this. The outside has a couple of stars and bunnies. Now, with those, I have actually swapped the normal floss colors with the Etoile floss. That way, it stitches like a regular floss, but has some blending filament in there as well, just to give it a little extra sparkle. And I've been using the Etoile floss for both the bunnies and the stars. And I've also been using the Etoile floss in shade 310 to do every ounce of all of the border work, just to give it a little bit of a shimmer. I wasn't looking for anything too crazy, just a little bit of a shimmer if you have it in the right light. So far, it's coming out beautifully. I'm really excited to get going on it and to see what happens when we bring the interior into the picture and what you'll think of chapter 9. Also on the work in progress pile, like I said, we had started another one of those Granny Fillet Square blankets. Outside of that, we have the Unicorn Biscorn New. This I haven't really touched since the last time we spoke about works in progress items, but I'm hoping to get this finished within the next few days. I'd like to get this one finished ASAP. Then that way I can move on to starting the challenge project. Also on the docket here, we're about to start another project. This is the Hawaiian pineapples or the tropical pineapple stitch. You can actually find that in my store, sleepinglunadesigns.etsy.com. This is actually going to be a Christmas present for my mother. She saw the design and didn't believe that I designed it. Not sure if I should take that as a compliment or a slap in the face or both, but she said a few months ago that she wanted this particular piece, so I am going to oblige and make her this particular piece. I based it off of the idea of a mandala or something just repeating in all of the corners, or almost kind of like a biscornu. So if you wanted to shrink this pattern down even further, you actually could turn this into the top of a biscornu. Next on the works in progress list is going to be something for my father for Christmas. This is a pattern set by Mini Cross Stitch, and you can find them at minicrossstitch.com. This is the Golf Quotes collection, and it's a Stitch and a Hoop series. So it's actually 4 mini golfing stitches, and on 14 count Ada, they would be finished off in a 4-inch hoop. Now, instead of doing them individually as suggested, because I can never follow directions, I will be stitching them all on one piece of fabric and framing it and sending it to my father for Christmas. I'm going to be doing this on 18 count fabric because I'm a glutton for punishment. What else is new? But this, I think, would be great because it's nice and small. It's just perfect enough where I can frame it and have it hang on his office wall without being super intrusive. And the very last piece on the work in progress list is the Princess Peach stained glass piece by Pinky the Pink. Now, this pattern has actually been in my backlog for a very long time. And because of something on Twitch, got to be pulled to the forefront. This pattern is quarter stitch hell, if I may say so myself. I would not wish this on anyone unless they're working on linen, which you know I'm not, because I didn't realize it was quarter stitch hell when I first set this piece up. I'm stitching this on 16 count Aida, and I am regretting every ounce of it, but it's going to look stunning when completed. The original pattern comes coded for all satin flosses. I've actually switched all of those out just to be regular DMC flosses, with one of the blue tones for the stained glass background being switched out for a toile. So then it has a little bit of nighttime glimmer. The fabric of choice I'm using is actually something I got from Mystic Fabrics in what Misty affectionately calls the games. On Facebook, if you're part of the Mystic Fabrics group, you will know that once a month or so, Misty will post a bunch of fabrics and it's a free for all. It is a competitive Facebook album post. So then that way you can pick out fabrics and buy them on the fly if you don't want to sort through what's on her shop. I got a piece of fabric from that back in June, and it was seafoam green and gray. Wasn't sure what I was going to use it for, but then I did the dimensions and the measurements, and this project somehow fits perfectly for it. So we're going to make it work and see if I can get it stitched on that. I took the gray portion for this particular stitch, and it looks really cool so far. I've only gotten through some of the stained glass pieces, but I think it'll look really great when we start to actually get down to Princess Peach herself. So a big thing I just want to point out, this is in post. I said Chantelane throughout the last half of this podcast. It is most definitely not pronounced Chantelane. It is pronounced Chatelaine. There is no extra N in there. So please excuse my horrendous butchering of an incredibly talented pattern designer. Please forgive me somehow. Now, the challenge piece. Let's talk about this. While on my break, because of course, while I'm on break, I don't relax and I don't actually sit back and enjoy life. I fill my life with more projects until I am overflowing with projects, of course. But what I've officially decided is I'm going to enter a piece in for the county fair next year. So 2021 is going to be the year of the chatelaine. I am jumping headfirst into a chatelaine, and I am not excited. I'm excited, but I'm very nervous, I think is a better way to phrase it. I think I am a lot more tentative about jumping into this large of a project off the top. This particular piece is the Desert Mandala, And holy cannoli, there is so much detail going on. If you look at the actual specs for the pattern, the only thing the website will tell you is that it is 314 stitches by 314 stitches. Now, this also has beautiful shades of silks, variegated and solid, with other interesting threads, crystals, and beads. I've never stitched anything this large before. I've never used silks in a stitch. And I've never done anything with beading. I think I'm in over my head. Here's another reason why I think I'm in over my head. The pattern by itself was $44 US. Understandable. And also with a chatelaine pattern, you want to buy digital. Of course, the chatelaine patterns have physical copies as well, but it is so nice to have the digital version of this. Then that way you can pull up Adobe PDF and just zoom all the way in. You're gonna need it. But that pattern alone was $44 US. The fabric that I have chosen, I didn't want to do antique white. Just something about me bothered it. It was just bothering me. It didn't fit correctly with the theme. With it being a desert piece, it didn't make sense for this to be on a white background. I ended up picking up a fabric from Silk Weaver called Days Gone By. It was a recommendation given to me by some individuals in the chatelaine support group on Facebook. And the only way I would get enough fabric, both width and length, to make sure there was enough for framing was to buy a full yard. So that also ran me about $80 US plus shipping. And I'm waiting to get that in. Because of COVID, some dyeing times are taking longer, some shipping times are taking longer. So I'm really anxious to see how long I'm going to need to wait to get this fabric in and properly cut. The size piece I actually need is a 30 by 30. This way, when it's finished, I did all of the conversions. It should be about 22 inches tall and wide when completed. 30 by 30 should give me enough for matting, framing, and making sure everything is good to go when I take it to get them custom framed. Because there's going to be no choice. You're going to have to custom frame a piece like this. The last thing I really need to do for this project, I need to get the specialty floss and bead kit. Now, the specialty floss and bead kit, I think we're probably not going to hear about this pattern for a bit because of the specialty floss and bead kit. The beading kit and specialty flosses, I believe it totals out to $215 before shipping. There's a lot of specialty flosses in there. I believe, upwards of 40 skeins of specialty floss and specialty silks in that particular kit. And that kit does not include the DMC flosses. So just totaling everything together that I've just totaling all of those numbers, not even including the DMC flosses, we're already hitting around $330 for this pattern, which means that it is my challenge to make this as perfect as humanly possible. My mindset for going into this fair is I am walking in and expecting that blue ribbon. That is what I am setting the expectation for myself, simply because of how much I'm investing up front on this pattern. However, it's really pretty. I don't think I would do this pattern unless it was for a special occasion like this, unless it was for a special cause, something like a competition. Simply because this cost input is way too high on a cross stitch. And when I say too high, I'm not trying to I'm not trying to tell the artist that their work isn't worth paying for because oh man, it is worth paying for. What I'm trying to say is if you're coming from the cross stitching realm of cute little Etsy pieces, this is a huge change. Not only the pattern cost, but everything else that goes into it. This is a very stark contrast to the world of simple Etsy patterns. And you need to know that about a chatelaine before you step into it. So I'm very excited to actually get involved in this pattern and see what I can learn because there's got to be something I'm going to be learning throughout this whole entire experience outside of patience. So I can't wait to see what else is going to kind of start kicking up once this piece takes off. Now, let's talk about what we've gotten in since the last time we've talked. There's been a lot of stuff coming in the mail, so we'll start with fabric. On the fabric side of things, we've gotten one thing from the Misty Games. Mystic Fabrics, of course, does their games on Facebook. It's a free for all. It's crazy. But I managed to score an 18 by 27-inch piece of 28 count Lugana opal. And it's a tan kind of tone. It's a nice multi-neutral sort of base with a ton of glitter in it. And it has got me inspired for some things. I'm not sure what I'm going to make on it yet, but it is indeed quite stunning. I have an idea of doing, there's this watercolored teacup octopus that I was thinking about stitching. I'm forgetting the name of the designer off the top, but my future sister in law wanted this piece, and I think this fabric is actually quite perfect to stitch this on. She is just as bright and glittery and colorful as this piece would be, and I think this fabric would be a perfect complement. Outside of that, from Mystic Fabrics, we did get two more pieces of fabric. The first being the fabric of the month for July. Now, the USPS, or the US Postal Service, has had some known issues as of late. We won't get into that in detail here. But let's just say that packages are not reliably being delivered on time. So was the case for the fabric of the month for July, and it was called Gilded. Now, it's a yellow toned, multi-toned yellow fabric, and I got this in 16 count Ada. It's an 18-inch by 30-inch piece. What I'm thinking, there's two pieces I would like to make out of this fabric if I have enough room. The first being the Welcome to Camp Crystal Lake sign from the Witchy Stitcher. Utterly think that this fabric would be the perfect choice. It's weathered. It would give the sign a weathered look. And I think that would actually make this look really great. The other piece I have an idea for with this fabric, there is a seller on Etsy that makes an Avatar The Last Airbender cross stitch pattern, and it is the pattern for the Lost Appa poster. Now, watching Avatar The Last Airbender for the very first time when it came on Netflix rather recently, I fell in love, and Appa is my favorite thing in the universe. I love Appa. So, this fabric reminded me of maybe what a sign like that could look like at the time. Maybe it's a fresher piece of parchment, or maybe it's a more muddied up piece of parchment, whatever you want to go with. I think this fabric would work really well in that instance. We also received the August fabric of the month, and this is also in a 16 count Ada and an 18-inch by 30-inch piece. This is a purple tone. I want to say almost like a mulberry. Uh, But the name of this fabric sells it for you immediately. The fabric name is called Please Scream Inside Your Heart. Way to capitalize on the greatest meme of the pandemic. This is the greatest meme that has come out into the pandemic. And honestly, this fabric makes you feel warm and fuzzy. Yes, it is a cool toned purple with some lighter and darker shades of this purple, but it makes you feel happy somehow when you look at it. I don't know necessarily what I'm going to do with this fabric yet, but I have some ideas. I just need to make sure I pick the perfect piece. Next on the haul list, we actually got something in on the day that I'm recording this podcast, and it is a crochet hook stand. Now, this crochet hook stand came from Ukraine. So if you do plan on looking into this particular seller, just know that customs has not been very kind to a lot of us lately. So there may be delays in receiving your packages. But this is by a shop called Leto Workshop, Letto Workshop. And they're based in Ukraine. They have all sorts of crochet hook stands. Now, most of their crochet hook stands come in different tones. You can get them in walnut, mahogany, wenge, and natural. I believe my order was in mahogany, if I have to say, but it is a stunning dark wood. And this particular caddy holds 12 crochet hooks. These are fitting perfectly with my streamlined swirls from Furls, and the Odyssey hook also fits really well in here. The other hook that also fits really well in here is the Henpecked Hooks wooden crochet hook that I got off of Etsy. That does fit in here rather well as well. This 12 hook stand was actually relatively affordable. It was only $22 US. Shipping was the part that cost the most, but then again, that's to be expected when you're shipping something to the States from overseas. So I was actually willing to pay for it. And when I actually got this package, the seller included a handwritten note thanking me for purchasing from them and wishing me good health, which was such a stunning touch. What a touch! It's beautiful. And then they also made a portable crochet hook holder. It's out of a really thick felt type fabric, and it has an ornate ribbon detail going along the whole entire flap. It's honestly really pretty, and I am actually really glad I got this. I have plans to travel in March, so being able to bring a crochet hook with me comfortably and storing it instead of throwing it in a plastic bag or in a backpack, it gives me a little bit of comfort, and I frankly love this. I'm super excited it finally came in. The last thing that I want to talk about for the haul would be all of the yarn that we got at Joann's. My best friend and I went to Joann's Fabrics as soon as she moved up to the Pacific Northwest. And we went to the clearance section, our favorite place of all time. Now, this was a particularly good day for the clearance section, as they had just put a bunch of the Lion Brand cupcake yarn out for clearance. Yes, the same Lion Brand cupcake yarn I've been using for the Granny Fillet Square. The Granny Fillet Square, these particular cupcake yarns for this, they were on clearance, red tag clearance, for $4.47. That's not a bad deal. But the sign above that clearance area is what sold us. 40% off the red tag clearance price. It brought these down to $2.50 US per ball of yarn. That is unheard of. So we were paying $2.50 for 590 yards of yarn. I believe I purchased 22 balls of yarn that day. I think I might have a problem. But the intent of this is actually to make some blankets and keep them around in case I need to give presents. It's that point in my life where everyone else around me is starting to have children. And even though that is not personally a thing I will choose to do, I want to support them. So, baby blankets are a great present. So, I am currently working on getting through the rest of the holidays first. And then I have some blankets to make to keep in storage in case anyone ends up needing a baby blanket. The last thing I want to talk to you about is my August favorite shop of the month. Now, when I give you a favorite shop of the month, it is just a personal recommendation of someone that I've really been loving their patterns and their work as of recent. These are patterns that are well charted, well documented, customer service is top notch, and the people behind the brand are just iconic. And this month, for August at least, the August recap, I'm going to have to give it to Night Spirit Studio. Night Spirit Studio, I love Night. She is such a good individual. Night Spirit Studio does, I would classify it more as Victorian Gothic, but she does a lot of Gothic cross stitch patterns. And her shop icon or her shop mascot, good old Ghost. What a cute little black cat. Such a little love bug. But what I love about Knight's patterns is that she originally specialized in doing graphic design and pixel art. So the transition into cross stitch patterns doesn't seem to really ever phase her. She really can master whatever she puts in front of herself to accomplish. The most favorite releases that I've had in August, she has a bunch of these Halloween pumpkin mandalas that I gotta say I'm in love with and can't wait to purchase. But the one I really want from her August releases, it is an ornate pomegranate. It's, of course, the pomegranate is known as the fruit of the dead in ancient Greek mythology, so it fits in perfect for her brand and what she wants. And it's got this delicate detail in each of the corners that just makes it pop, makes it beautiful. Some of the pieces that you may know from her are Until We're Dust, and it is a heart of roses and thorns with two skeletons in the middle holding hands. That is actually the piece that originally led me to find out who Night Spirit Studio was. And behind all of this, let me just say, Night is such a fantastic human being. And I am very pleased that I can call her a friend outside of this. And no, she doesn't know I'm doing this. She does not know that I am putting her in the podcast. So I hope when she listens to this, she kind of freaks out a little. But if you do want to check her out, I would highly recommend it. You can get a couple of freebies on her website, which is nightspiritstudio.com. But I also recommend going to her Etsy store, which is nightspiritstudio.etsy.com. And that's all I have for you in today's episode of The Craft Cove. Thank you so much for coming here and taking a little break from your day to listen about works in progress, finishes, and some challenges and hauls. I appreciate you. And without you being here, we wouldn't have our little community and our little family. So thank you again for being here. You can figure out a little bit more about what we do outside of this podcast by going to sleepinglunadesigns.etsy.com or by joining us on social media at SleepingLunaDesigns. You can find us on Instagram and Twitch with that username. I look forward to sharing everything about Christmas crafting rather soon with you. So please keep on crafting, and we'll catch up really soon.